Deep within an ancient forest, where the sunlight barely pierced the thick canopy and the scent of damp earth lingered in the air, lived a woman the world had long forgotten. The trees, aged and wise, stood like silent sentinels, guarding a secret only the wind and birds dared to whisper. Hidden in the heart of this wilderness was a small, moss-covered cottage, and in that cottage lived Esperanza, a solitary old woman who had traded the noise of society for the tender, wordless embrace of nature. Long ago, Esperanza had been surrounded by love. She had a husband with laughter in his eyes and children whose footsteps echoed through a house once full of life. But sorrow is a quiet thief. It doesn't always come all at once. Her husband passed first, then her son in war, and finally her daughter in a cruel twist of fate. The weight of grief silenced her, and so she left the world behind, not in anger, but in search of stillness. She wandered until the trees welcomed her, and in their quiet companionship, she built her life anew, far from the judgments and noise of the world. Each morning, just after dawn, she'd wrap her shawl around her shoulders, take a wicker basket in hand, and step barefoot onto the dew-kissed earth. The forest greeted her like an old friend. Birds chirped softly, leaves rustled secrets overhead, and wildflowers bent in her path. She gathered what the forest offered, berries, herbs, roots, never taking more than she needed. Her fingers worked with memory and grace, and her voice, though rarely used, found song again in conversations with owls and finches. Loneliness never visited her. She was held by the rhythm of the earth. One evening, as the sun turned the sky to gold and shadows stretched long like memories, Esperanza heard a sound that didn't belong, a faint, aching whimper. It came from beyond the ferns and brambles. Pushing aside a curtain of branches, she found him, a tiny fox cub, no older than a few weeks, lying injured and cold on a bed of leaves. His paw bled, and his trembling body spoke of both pain and fear. Yet when she reached out, he didn't resist. Something in her presence calmed him. She carried him home, cradled close like a wounded child. By firelight, she washed his paw in spring water, applied crushed herbs, and whispered lullabies as if they were spells. She fed him soft bread dipped in warm milk and wrapped him in wool. The days turned gentle. His wound closed, his spirit returned, and so did joy to her quiet home. She named him Teru, meaning light in a language her grandmother once spoke. The name suited him, for he brought warmth back into her life. Teru grew quickly, his once fragile limbs now swift and strong. But unlike wild foxes who roam far and forget, Teru never left for long. He would disappear into the trees at dawn, chasing scents and stirring leaves, but always returned before dusk. By night, he rested at Esperanza's feet, curled like a flame beside the hearth. Their bond was not of owner and pet. It was soul-deep. He read her silences like pages. When she stared long into the fire, haunted by memories, he would nudge her hand. When her laughter returned, his tail wagged with joy. Then, one stormy night when even the stars dared not show themselves, the peace of the forest was broken. A band of fugitives, desperate and armed, stumbled into the woods. Hunted by law and hungry for shelter, they followed the flicker of light until they found Esperanza's home. From a distance, they saw only an old woman living alone in a fragile cottage. They whispered plans, certain she'd be no challenge. To them, she was prey. But Teru had already sensed them. He had smelled their fear and violence on the wind. He watched from the shadows as they crept through the undergrowth, eyes gleaming with menace. He waited, silent, focused, a guardian in fur. And when they approached the cottage under the cover of darkness, believing they would strike unseen, Teru struck first. He erupted from the trees like a flame from the earth, howling, snarling, leaping with a force no one expected. His eyes burned with fury, his teeth bared like daggers. The men shouted in panic, falling over one another, stumbling back into the dark. They fired blindly into the night, but Teru moved like smoke and storm. They fled, terrified, bleeding, defeated by a creature they thought was just a fox. Esperanza stood in the doorway, trembling with her lantern high. When Teru returned to her, stained with the blood of her enemies but calm as moonlight, she fell to her knees and held him. Her tears fell not from fear, but from overwhelming love. He had risked everything for her. Word of the attack spread quickly. At first, it was whispered in fear, a witch in the forest with a demon fox. But as villagers grew curious and came to see for themselves, they found not a witch, but a kind woman with soft eyes and healing hands. She welcomed them with tea and warm words. She gave herbs for fevers, salves for wounds, and stories that made children dream. Teru stayed by her side, always watchful, always calm. Soon, the forest cottage became a place of reverence. Children left offerings of berries for the fox spirit. Travelers came to speak with the wise woman who lived in harmony with the wild. Her story became a legend, not of magic, but of love, of how one woman's kindness saved a life and how that life returned the favor 100 times over. Esperanza and Teru grew older, but their bond never faded. Together, they became the soul of the forest, a tale whispered on winds, etched in bark, and remembered by those who believe in the power of quiet love. When Esperanza finally passed, it was on a still morning with birds singing and sunlight spilling gently through the leaves. Teru lay beside her, silent and unmoving, as if standing guard one final time. Some say he vanished into the woods that day and became part of the forest itself. Others claim they still see his golden eyes watching from the shadows, protecting travelers and guiding the lost. But all agree on one truth: that cottage, hidden in the heart of the forest, is sacred ground. This story reminds us that true strength doesn't always roar. It often whispers through kindness, patience, and quiet loyalty. Esperanza didn't protect herself with weapons or walls. She opened her heart to the forest, to healing, and to a wounded soul who would one day protect her in return. In a world that often praises power and speed, this tale teaches us the unmatched power of compassion and the bonds we build with love. Whether human or animal, young or old, when we give without expecting anything in return, we plant seeds of loyalty, trust, and grace. Kindness is never wasted. Sometimes it returns to us in the moments we need it most. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. More tales of magic, healing, and courage await you. And remember, the most powerful protectors don't always come with swords. Sometimes they come with fur, silence, and an open heart.